وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بسورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين فإن لم تفعلوا ولن تفعلوا فاتقوا النار التي وقودها الناس والحجارة أعدت للكافرين وبشر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أن لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة رزقا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل وأتوا به متشابها ولهم فيها أزواج مطهرة وهم فيها خالدون إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن 7 سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How's everyone today? Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. Ameen. Okay, before we move on to lesson number 7. First of all, when we begin our class, this class or any class for that matter, with supplications for beneficial knowledge, we need to be mindful. Okay, so this component of your class is very much part of class. It's not break time. Okay, so make sure you remain engaged in supplication. Okay, ask Allah mindfully for beneficial knowledge. Okay, because it's easy for us to get distracted, right? in terms of preparing our notes or, you know, doing anything else. It's very important to begin whatever it is that you are beginning mindfully, with full involvement of not just your body, you're physically being present somewhere, but your mind also being alert, your heart being involved. Okay? All right. Lesson number 6, Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 21 to 25. This is the lesson we completed yesterday. This lesson begins with an address to whom? An-nas, all people, including all of us. And what is the command? U'budu, worship. Worship whom? Rabbakum. That's the command, right? Worship your Rabb, Khaliq, Malik, Mudabbir. Now, when it comes to u'budu, ibadah, what have you understood? What is ibadah? Devotion. What else is it? It includes a lot. So what else is it? Fear of Allah. Go ahead. Okay, everything that Allah loves and approves of. Meaning, paying attention to what it is that Allah loves and approves of. Doing what it is that pleases Him. But also staying away from what displeases Him. Okay? Ibn al-Qayyim, he explains that ta'abbud. Ta'abbud is a term that is from the root letters Ain, Ba, Dal. Same root letters that we find in the term ibadah. Okay? Or abd. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he explains that ta'abbud, which is basically commitment to ibadah. What is ta'abbud? Commitment to ibadah. He says it is the highest level of love. What is it? Highest level of love. Wherein a person is rendered powerless before their beloved. And then he also elaborates, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, complete ubudiyyah is a byproduct of complete love, and complete love is a byproduct of the beloved's perceived perfection. Okay, so what is ubudiyyah? How do we translate ubudiyyah? Okay, let's go back. What's abd? How do we translate abd? Slave. Okay, ibadah is what? Ibadah is worship. Okay, ubudiyyah is servitude. Okay, and what did we just learn about ta'abbud? What is ta'abbud? Commitment to ibadah. Okay, so Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, complete ubudiyyah, which means complete servitude, is a byproduct of complete love, and complete love is a byproduct of the beloved's perceived perfection. And he says, as for Allah, He possesses such absolute perfection that even imagining Him flawed is impossible. Imam Raghib al-Isfahani, he defines ibadah as the pinnacle and purest form of humility. The pinnacle and purest form of humility. So, we can come away with a few key common ideas that are embedded within the definitions of ibadah. Number one, ibadah or worship is the ultimate expression of love. Number two, ibadah involves a combination of veneration, adoration, submission, and humility. It combines all of that. And number three, ibadah is used to draw nearer to Allah. It's not the end in and of itself, it's the means to the end. Okay? Which is why no human being can ever say that I have graduated from the need for ibadah. Because you can never do that. As long as you're alive, you need to continue to do what? Try to get nearer and nearer to Allah. Okay? Then also, ibadah involves loyalty, it involves commitment and obedience regarding commands and prohibitions. It's not only about do's, do this and do this. It's also about do not do this and do not do this. Okay? So here the address is to all of mankind, and the command is worship your Rabb who created you and those before you, that you may become righteous. You may adopt taqwa, mindfulness of Allah in all of your practices, everything that you do, including making supplication at the beginning of a class. All of this is also what? A means of drawing nearer to Allah. These are all acts of worship. So how should they be done? Mindfully. That's the objective. To become mindful of Allah wherever it is that you are, whichever state it is that you're in. And here Allah reminds us that He is the one who facilitated many different kinds of blessings for us. He is the one who made for you the earth a bed spread out and the sky a ceiling, and sent down from the sky water and brought forth thereby fruits as provision for you. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا, so do not attribute to Allah equals. Here's what you are not to do. Worship Allah, meaning worship Him exclusively, and do not set up co-equals with Him. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, while you know that there is no one similar to Him. And then Allah mentions in verse number 23, and if you are in doubt about what we have sent down upon our abd, ala abdina. Abd here is referring to whom? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So meaning, if it is that you have any doubt about revelation, what has been revealed upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then produce a surah the like thereof, and call upon your witnesses other than Allah, if you should be truthful. And when it comes to this title, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being given this description, this title of being abd, we learn that Umar radiallahu anhu, he narrates, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, do not exaggerate in praising me as the Christians praised Isa ibn Maryam, for I am only a slave. Abd. So call me Abdullah, the slave of Allah, wa Rasuluh, and His messenger. And then Allah mentions here next, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا. But if you do not come with a surah like the Qur'an, and you will never be able to. Notice how here there are different words of negation used in this verse. Which words of negation? Lam is one of them, and also lan. Okay, lan is more powerful than lam. Okay, both are used for negation. Lam basically means did not. It pushes the meaning to the past. Whereas lan, it pushes the meaning to the future. So meaning will not and never will. Okay? So if you do not produce something like the Qur'an, and you will never be able to, it's an absolute negation. فَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ, then fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones. Now, this term, فَاتَّقُوا, this is a command. So this is also included within ibadah, isn't it? Allah is telling us, fear. Be cautious. Fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones. In other words, stay away from doubting revelation. Don't doubt revelation. Don't be in any kind of raib about what has been revealed upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fear the fire, whose fuel is men and stones. Now, human beings are made up of all different kinds of components that can easily be ignited. Bones have calcium. Phosphorus is found within human beings. And this is actually what is used for covering like a matchstick. That's why the matchstick can be easily ignited. And think about this. the description given here, the fire whose fuel is people and stones. Ibn Mas'ud, he said, when there is mention of stones here, this is referring to black sulfur, okay? Because it catches fire quickly. It also is foul smelling. It also generates a lot of smoke, and it also clings very firmly. And so this indicates that the heat within the hellfire is very intense, since it burns with stones. Burns with stones. Unlike the fires of this world that burn with materials such as wood. So this is no ordinary fire that has been referred to here. And also, u'iddat, it has been prepared. For whom? لِلْكَافِرِينَ, for the disbelievers. Those who end up being in denial about that which they should not be in denial about. But then here Allah mentions next in verse 25, وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and give good tidings to those who believe. Those who accept what they should be accepting. They don't go into denial. And وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, they do righteous deeds. So good deeds are performed with faith, with utmost love and utmost respect for Allah, along with sincerity towards Allah, and also another component which is known as mutaba'ah, compliance, meaning performing a deed as per the methodology of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sunnah method. And for this you need knowledge. Even for ikhlas you need knowledge, but for mutaba'ah you need knowledge. And also we learn here, without righteous deeds, iman is not even complete. And without iman, righteous deeds are not accepted. So, give glad tidings to those who believe and perform righteous deeds, أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ, that they will have gardens in paradise. تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ, beneath which rivers flow. And here where it is mentioned, تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ, there are two ways to understand this. Number one, this means تَحْتَ أَشْجَارِهَا وَقُصُورِهَا, underneath the trees and the palaces of Jannah, rivers will flow. And so this describes the beauty of the scenes in Jannah. And the second way this can be understood is that this means تحت أوامر أهلها, in the possession and control of the inhabitants of Jannah. So this is, in other words, describing the freedom and the power that the people of Jannah will possess. So, in other words, the rivers of Jannah will flow as per their liking. They will direct the flow of the rivers whichever way they would like. And these rivers are rivers of water, of milk, of honey, and wine. The inhabitants of Jannah will be able to cause these rivers and springs to gush forth from wherever they want. And then further, whenever they are provided with a provision of fruit therefrom, they will say, هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِن قَبْلِ, this is what we were provided with before. And notice here, كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِن ثَمَرَةٍ. This min, connected with a common noun, then takes on the translation of any. It gives the meaning of any. Okay? So whenever they are provided with a provision of any fruit therefrom, they will say, this is what we were provided with before. And the reason why they think like this is because it has been given to them in likeness. وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا. Now scholars, they differ over this issue. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, there is nothing from that which is in the world that is in Jannah except for names. Okay? So we refer to certain items. You know, when it comes to fruits, we give them names. Okay, so we identify apples as apples, bananas as bananas, right? But these will be completely different in Jannah in terms of taste and delight, even if the names are the same. Okay? Or another view amongst the scholars is Imam al-Tabari, he says that these fruits will be similar, meaning they will be resembling in terms of name, okay? But not in terms of taste. So, Jannah is not a boring place. 2 apples in Jannah will be completely different, but both will be amazing. Okay? Another view amongst the scholars is that these fruits will be similar in color but different in taste, meaning within Jannah. Similar in color but different in taste. And this is the view of Mujahid. He is the student of Ibn Abbas. Other scholars have said that these fruits will resemble each other in beauty, delicious taste, and enjoyability. So each time you eat the fruit, it will be delightful in a unique way, each time. So there's no chance of a person in Jannah saying, oh, this is the same apple, same type of apple I've had before. Every time a person consumes any kind of fruit, it will be unique. And this is the view of Hasan al-Basri. Okay? And what else will the inhabitants of Jannah have? وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ. And they will have their impurified spouses. So purified in the external sense and also in the internal sense. Purified from menstruation, from defecation, from any kind of impurity, from foul smells, and also internally. Pure from jealousies and resentments and deceptions. وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. And they will abide therein eternally forever. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, death will be brought on the day of resurrection in the form of a white-colored ram. And it will be said to the inmates of paradise, the inhabitants of paradise, do you recognize this? And they will raise up their necks and they will look towards it and they will say, yes, it is death. Because by now everybody has experienced it, right? Then it will be said to the inmates of the hellfire, the inhabitants of the hellfire, do you recognize this? And they will raise up their necks and they will look and they will say, yes, it is death. Then the command will be given for slaughtering that. And then it will be said, inmates of paradise, there is everlasting life for you and no death. And then addressing the inmates of the hellfire, it will be said, O inmates of the hellfire, there is everlasting life for you and no death. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited this verse, وَأَنذِرْهُمْ يَوْمَ الْحَسْرَةِ إِذْ قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةٍ وَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. This is verse 39 of Surah Maryam. And warn them of the day of regret when the matter will be concluded, and yet they are in a state of heedlessness and they do not believe. We also learn, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was asked a question once. A man came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will there be camels in Jannah? He said to him, if Allah admits you into Jannah, you will have therein whatever your soul desires and pleases your eyes. But also keep in mind that the desires and the wishes of the people of Jannah will be Jannah worthy. Because after all, these are not just, random people. These are selected people. Jannah worthy people. So of course their desires are also what? Jannah worthy. Then also we learn, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, verily the wives of paradise will sing for their husbands with the most beautiful voices that anyone has ever heard. Among their singing is, we are fine and beautiful women, wives of a noble people, looked upon with the eyes of comfort. And among their singing is, we are women everlasting, never to die. We are women in safety, never to fear. We are women here to stay, never to leave. But remember, this is only in Jannah. If women start singing these kinds of songs here in this dunya, will they be truthful, first of all, in their claims? Not at all. So those who stay away from lies and fabrications and exaggerations here in this dunya, for the sake of Allah, will be granted everlasting joy and happiness and delight in Jannah. We also learn, Abu Hurairah, he reports, I said, what is paradise built from? He's asking this question, addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By the way, what do these kinds of questions teach you about the people who are asking these questions? Are there camels in Jannah? What is Jannah built of? What does it tell you? Yes, this is their destination. Clearly, they want this. So the question is, what is Jannah built from? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, bricks of silver and gold. Its mortar is musk of strong fragrance. Its pebbles are pearls and rubies. And its soil is saffron. Whoever enters it will enjoy bliss without despair and eternity without death. Their clothes will not fade, nor will their youth expire. This is Jannah. Then also we learn in Surah Muhammad, verse number 15, a description of the rivers of Jannah. So here we learn in verse 15 of Surah Muhammad that Allah describes Mathalul Jannah, the description of Jannah. Allati wu'idal muttaqun, which the righteous are promised. Wherein are rivers of water unaltered, rivers of milk, the taste of which never changes, rivers of wine delicious to those who drink, and rivers of purified honey, in which they will have from all kinds of fruits and forgiveness from their Lord. So is this like that of those who abide eternally in the fire? Meaning, is this outcome like the outcome of those who abide eternally in the hellfire and are given to drink scalding water that will sever their intestines? Not at all. The two outcomes are very different. And hence we need to understand all of our statements and decisions are taking us closer to one of these outcomes. Which one do we want? Then also, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, follow the right course, be devoted, and give glad tidings. Verily, none of you will enter paradise by his deeds alone. So the Sahaba, they heard this, they said, not even you? Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, not even myself, unless Allah grants me his rahmah. And then he said, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ أَحَبَّ الْعَمَلِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهُ وَإِنْ قَلَّ. Know that the most beloved deed to Allah is done regularly, even if it is small. So ask yourself, which deed that is beloved to Allah have you identified for yourself in your life that you're consistently performing, even if it's looked upon as being something small? It could be regular supplications, morning, evening, adhkar, that you don't abandon, you never leave. It could be, for example, in our context right now, learning your lesson regularly and not making compromises. Like, oh no, one time is enough today, short lesson. Or I'll skip today, tomorrow I'll complete the lesson. Ask yourself, of the most beloved deeds in the sight of Allah that you're aware of, which of them do you perform regularly? Regularly. And so one main action point that we can take away from this, as we identify Jannah as that destination that we want for ourselves. One action point is to build regularity with regards to learning your lesson. Okay? Build that habit now. And don't trivialize it. It may seem like something small. What's the big deal? I'm attending class, right? So what if I skip the lesson? I'm attending the class, I'm taking notes. Do I have to really learn the lesson? Keep in mind the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's making mention of Jannah and the deeds that take a person towards Jannah. And he's making mention of the fact that nobody's entering into Jannah without Allah's mercy. And then he's saying, know that the most beloved deed to Allah is done regularly, even if it is small. So we have to build regularity with regards to good deeds. Okay? All right. Anything anybody would like to share, reflect upon, or ask before we move on to the next lesson? Also, I have another question for you. When you're taking your notes, while you're taking notes during class, do you start feeling like overwhelmed by any chance? Yes? It's okay if you say yes. Should you be, first of all, trying to write down everything? No. You shouldn't be trying to write down everything. Okay? Focus on listening, understanding, absorbing, and noting down as much as you can note down. Okay? So what should you be focusing on? I know you have had a few sessions about note-taking already. So yes, you need to pay attention to the root letters. Okay, the singulars and plurals. But only that. Only that? No. Try to note down the references. You know, when a particular verse of the Qur'an or verses of the Qur'an are mentioned in a certain context, note that down. Note the reference down. Okay? Hadith is mentioned, note down the reference. Much of this content is visible on the screen as well. Okay, so as much as you can note down, note down. And then when we go through, the lessons that we learn from a particular verse or particular verses, try to note down as much as you can. Some content is reviewed during group time as well. Okay? But don't feel so overwhelmed that you completely stop writing. Don't do that. You should be writing. That helps you remain engaged also. Okay? All right. Yes, Basra, go ahead. You wanted to share something?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I was reflecting about yesterday's lesson and how we were talking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful. And when I got back home, subhanAllah, I feel like every single time, I don't know if this happens to everybody, but I feel like every single time I come to tafsir class, whatever we learn, I always find it either on my For You page, on my social media or something. So yesterday I went home and I found an Instagram reel, and it was basically talking about, it was a Christian, and he was talking about how God would never put his servants in hell. And so he said basically God would never put his servants in hell, and it's only by it's only man's choice to basically be in hell, basically. And so he was kind of explaining that concept to other Christians. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, subhanAllah, I find it so a bit mind-boggling how, subhanAllah, it's not only our religion, but it's also other religions, they understand how merciful God is. And it's just kind of a bit mind-boggling that some people just don't understand, and some people just don't accept Islam, or they just don't accept the idea of God. And it also kind of reminded me of a saying that I have on one of my on my vision board, and it basically says, if you knew how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with your manner, your the things in your life, your heart would basically melt for him. And so I was just thinking of that, subhanAllah. I just wanted to share that.
And knowing that Allah is the most merciful should bring within us what what should that do to us, that realization? Should it make us fall into like complacency that he's so forgiving, so merciful, so I can just go ahead and do whatever I feel like doing? No, not at all. What should that bring within us, this realization that he is the most merciful? Prompt and swift and regular obedience, mindful obedience, willful obedience, right? And this is what ubudiyah is all about, isn't it? Servitude. Loving Allah the most, having utmost love for Him, because He is in fact the most merciful. So recognizing that Allah is the most merciful should bring within us what? A great deal of servitude. And this can only be translated in action. It's not just a theory. And we need to check ourselves, how merciful are we towards other people, towards Allah's creation? What do we pay attention to? How forgiving and tolerant are we? Okay. Yes, Fatima.
I just wanted to ask a small question. You mentioned that a righteous person's desires should be or will be Jannah worthy. I didn't really understand what that meant.
People's desires are of all different types in this dunya. Okay, so we have certain very good desires, we have the potential to have very good, aligned, pure desires. And then sometimes it's the opposite as well. Okay, so those opposite kinds of desires, which are sinful desires, are not Jannah worthy, because there's no sin in Jannah. Jannah is Darus Salam. Okay, so the people of Jannah, remember, they're going to enter Jannah after their hearts have been cleansed. So in the event that there were certain resentments between people of Jannah, that is all going to be cleansed before they enter into Jannah. So their hearts are going to be clean. So from clean hearts will stem forth clean desires. Not filthy desires, not sinful desires. That's what it means. Okay? All right. Lesson number 7. Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 26 to 29. Allah has presented various different examples and parables in the Qur'an to make us understand what we need to understand, because again, He is Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. And among the examples that are presented include the mention of the housefly, and also the spider, and also the mosquito. Now, there were some people who approached the Qur'an not with the purpose of taking lessons, receiving reminders, but just to find fault in it. And so such people would say, how can the Qur'an be divine scripture? When it mentions a housefly, it mentions a spider, it mentions a mosquito. So here Allah mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Indeed, Allah is not timid to present an example, that of a mosquito or what is smaller than it. Inna means indeed. It adds emphasis to the statement. And la yastahyi, what does that mean? He, meaning Allah, does not feel shy. La is a word used for negation. And the term yastahyi is from the root letters ha, ya, ya. And from these root letters we derive the term haya. Okay, haya. So what is haya? Haya is a sense within a person that stops them from doing something not acceptable. So it means to have some amount of hesitation or reluctance or even lack of confidence in doing something or saying something. It's a kind of a consciousness. It's a kind of a fear. And when you look at the term yastahyi, you find an additional sin and ta, just like nasta'in. And these are extra letters. The ya at the beginning for he. Okay? Third person. So, the word yastahyi, it means he feels shy or is ashamed of or is timid. Istihya, it means to have reluctance, to have hesitation. Indeed, Allah is not timid. He does not feel any hesitation. He is not shy. On that yadriba, he strikes forth. Yadriba from dadraba. Daraba means to strike. It can also mean to present something. And so the meaning of the term yadriba in any form is determined keeping the context in mind. The primary meaning is to strike one thing on another. But this term can also take on the meaning of traveling, because in traveling you strike your feet on the ground. Right? It can also take on the meaning of presenting or offering something. So the meaning of this term must be determined contextually. So indeed Allah does not feel shy that he strikes forth مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا, that of a mosquito or what is smaller than it. Now, مَثَلًا مَا, we look at this term. Mathal gives the example of, gives the meaning of example, right? Mathal means example. And ma is again extra, zaid, for emphasis. Ma is not coming here in its literal sense. So, mathalam ma meaning any example. And not just one example. Ba'uba, a mosquito. Now this word ba'uba is from the root letters ba'ain bod. Ba'ain bod. And ba'ud, the term ba'ud, it means part of something. Part of something. So the mosquito is so small that it seems as if it is a part of something. It seems like, it appears as if it is a part of something. And the term ba'uba is the singular of ba'ub. And ba'uba as a term can even be used for a very small insect. So small that only a part of it can actually be seen with the naked eye. Meaning you need to really magnify it to see its different parts in totality. And the term فوقها, فوق is opposite of تحت. تحت means under, فوق means above. Now, فوق can take on the meaning of being above physically, or above or more or greater in terms of rank. So it can even take on the meaning of superior. So again here, فَمَا فَوْقَهَا, or what is فَوْقَهَا, meaning what is above it in the physical sense. That's one way to understand it, right? What is literally on top of the mosquito, which is actually a type of parasite that does actually live on top of a mosquito. Or this can also mean what is fawq, meaning what is more insignificant in rank. More insignificant, because the mosquito itself is considered to be very insignificant. And what is more insignificant would be something that's maybe even tinier. More insignificant even in terms of rank. So over here, Allah is declaring that He does not feel shy from stating any example, no matter how insignificant it may appear to be, as long as the truth is what is being established, is being elaborated upon. Because the purpose behind stating an example, mathal, is to make a person understand a concept, right? So one should look at the intent of the example instead of focusing only on the objects that are being mentioned. Okay? And it is those who really want guidance who will benefit from these examples. And the mosquito is mentioned here although it is considered to be something very haqir, very trivial, very insignificant. Also, it is said the reason behind the revelation of this verse is that when Allah revealed the example of the housefly in the Qur'an, people objected that a fly is being presented as an evidence, as a hujjah. And where is this example of the housefly presented? In Surah Al-Hajj, verse 73, where again the address is to all of mankind. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, ضُرِبَ مَثَل. An example is presented. فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ. So listen to it. Indeed, those you invoke besides Allah will never create as much as ذُبَابًا, a fly. وَلَوْ اجْتَمَعُوا لَهُ. Even if they gather together for that purpose. And if the fly should steal away from them a tiny thing, they could never recover it from him. Weak are the pursuer and pursued. This is how the housefly is mentioned in the Quran. Then also we learn, in his tafsir, As-Suddi, he reports that Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and some other companions said, when Allah gave these two examples of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, meaning the verses that we studied earlier in Surah Al-Baqarah, مَثَلُهُمْ كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا and أَوْ كَصَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. The hypocrites said, Allah is far more exalted than for him to make such examples. So Allah revealed this verse, verses 26 and 27 up until the term humul khasirun. Now, here there is mention of the ba'uba and also fama fawqaha, right? So we identified that the term fawq is the opposite of taht. Taht means under, fawq means above. Fawq can mean above, it can mean over, it can mean beyond in terms of rank and also place. So the three ways we can understand this. Fama fawqaha. Number one, fawq meaning beyond in terms of insignificance, hiqara. So meaning adna min al-ba'udah. Something smaller, even more insignificant than the mosquito. So in other words, Allah is not ashamed to cite an example that is less significant even than the mosquito. That's one way to understand this, right? So fawq meaning beyond in terms of insignificance. Okay? Number two, beyond in terms of irtifa', meaning what is above, what is on top of the mosquito, which is referring to then a parasite, which actually is living on top of the mosquito. So scientists have discovered that there is a parasite type creature that dwells on top of the mosquito. So you could almost refer to it as the lice of a mosquito. It's so tiny, it's not visible to the naked eye. Thirdly, fawq, meaning beyond in terms of kibr, in terms of being great or superior. So something greater, beyond in terms of kibr, superior to the mosquito. It could be then the fly, it could be then the spider also. So the real intent and purpose of the example is to make people understand a concept. So if people understand something through the example of a mosquito, then that's pretty significant. But also keep in mind, we might consider in some ways that the mosquito is actually insignificant, but is it really? No. Because if you do like a quick Google search and you post the question that what is the deadliest animal? The response you're going to get is mosquito. Okay? So the World Health Organization confirmed that the year 2024 was the worst year on record for dengue, which is a disease, with over 14 million cases and 9,508 recorded deaths worldwide. And this is a mosquito-borne disease. Mosquitoes carry this disease, dengue. Right? The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that mosquito-borne diseases such as malaria cause around 600,000 deaths annually. So then is this creature really all that insignificant? Allah does not feel shy presenting an example of a mosquito or something smaller. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and those who have believed, فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, they know that it is the truth from their Lord, meaning the example that has been presented is the truth. Those who have believed know that it is the truth from their Lord, meaning the similitude that Allah has given, it is the truth from their Lord. And who are alladina amanu? The ones who have believed. They believe in what it is that Allah has revealed. They believe in Him without having seen Him. So they're the ones who, فَيَعْلَمُونَ, they know. يَعْلَمُونَ from Ain Lam Mim. They know that indeed it is the truth from their Rabb. حَقٌّ is what is established truth. So those who believe know that the example that Allah presents is the truth. Because they understand ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Everything in the Qur'an is factual. The people of Iman understand this. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, but as for those who disbelieve, فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. They say, what did Allah intend by this as an example? In other words, what use is there in this example? Of what benefit is the presenting of this example? The word amma is used for tafsil, for detail. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and as for the ones who disbelieved, kafaru from kaf fa ra. Again, the waw at the end indicating that this is plural. So they disbelieved. فَيَقُولُونَ, then they say, يَقُولُونَ from qaf waw lam. ماذا, what is that? And ma, we know it means what? The here is for vastness in meaning. Okay? The basically means that. Like in dhalika or hada, it takes on the meaning of that. So those who disbelieved, they say, what is that? أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. What is that Allah intended with this as an example? The word arada from ra waw dal. Rawd means to go back and forth in search of something, which is your goal. And irada is to think about and also to want to do something. It's really the purpose behind doing something. So the word irada is used for intention also, intention behind an action. And notice aradallahu. The dhamma over here, indicating that Allah is the doer of the action, right? Allah intended bihada mathala, with this as an example. And the term hada is used for pointing to what is close to you. Dhalika is used for pointing to that which is far. So those who disbelieve, they say, what is it that Allah has intended with this as an example? Meaning they're trivializing the example, right? Why did He present this example? And they say this because the truth is not clear to them, because of their inner aversion towards it. In Surah Al-Mutaffifin, verses 13 and 14, we learn, إِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ آيَاتُنَا قَالَ أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. When our verses are recited to him, he says, legends of the former peoples. No, rather the stain has covered their hearts of that which they were earning. So this is the approach of mujrimeen, criminals, wrongdoers. When they don't understand something, instead of blaming themselves, they blame Allah. يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا. He misleads many thereby. وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا, and guides many thereby. So Allah presents examples so that people will understand what they need to understand. And when a person does not choose to understand, he chooses to reject, it becomes a source of trial for that person. The example that is presented for guidance becomes a source of trial. So why would certain people not be interested, not be able to understand the examples that are presented? Number one, either they don't ponder the way they should, they don't reflect the way they should. Secondly, they might not be interested at all. There's something else that has penetrated their hearts deeply, making their hearts toxified. The term yudillu from dad lam lam, dalal is misguidance. So he misleads many thereby. Kathira from kaf tha ra, kathra is abundance, plenitude. وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا, and he guides through it many. It over here is being used for mathal, example. So he lets go astray through it, meaning the example that is presented, to support the truth, to establish the truth, to explain it. He lets go astray through it many, and he guides through it many. وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ, and he misleads not except the defiantly disobedient. And over here, when you look at the term ma means not, because after it there is illa. So ma is not translated as what over here, it's translated as not. So he misleads not except the defiantly disobedient. Al-fasiqeen. Now this word, al-fasiqeen, is from the root letters fa, sin, qaf. Fasiqeen is the plural of fasiqo. Again, what is an indication that this is a plural term? The yanun at the end, right? Now notice fasiqo. Look at the structure of the term, the word. It sounds like kafir, right? Fa'il, doer of an action. So who is fasiq? The one who is doing what? Fisq. Just like kafir, doer, is the one who is doing what? Kufr. So fasiq, one who is doing fisq. What is fisq? Literally, fisq means to exit, to come out of the bounds, to come out of the limits, to disobey, to break the rules. Fasaqa, it means to trespass, to break the bounds of law. So in the literal sense, imagine driving, seeing a stop sign, knowing you have to stop there and not stopping. What is this? In the literal sense. We're talking about the literal meaning. This is fisq. Crossing the limit. Where you're supposed to be stopping by law, you don't stop. That's trespassing. Okay? And to keep in mind the meaning of this word, just remember what is mentioned in the context of Iblis in Surah Al-Kahf. Where? In verse 50. Where Allah mentions فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. Okay? Mentioned when we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam, and they prostrated except for Iblis. He was of the jinn and departed from the command of his Lord. فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. Then also, the expression فَسَقَتِ الرُّطُبَةُ عَنْ قِشْرِهَا. What does this mean? The date fruit came out of its skin. Okay? So when the date fruit becomes ripe, what happens? The fleshy part, the pulp, actually bursts out of the thin skin, the thin membrane. This is fisq, in the literal sense. Okay? So, technically, what does this mean? What is fisq in its technical meaning? Who is a fasiq? The one who comes out from obedience to Allah and enters into what? Disobedience. So, hence, fisq is defiant disobedience. Defiant disobedience. It's not like an accidental kind of disobedience. It's defiant disobedience, knowingly coming out of the bounds of servitude. Because servitude to Allah requires for us to do certain things and not do certain things, right? A fasiq is going to do what? Cross those bounds. Right? An abd of Allah will stay within the bounds. So in other words, the fasiqeen are those who cross limits, those who defiantly disobey, those who sin. They don't want to change themselves, and they would much rather criticize and abandon the Qur'an by trivializing the examples presented within it. These are the ones who are led astray. So what do we learn from this? Number one, Allah does not shy away from stating the truth. So what do we take away for ourselves from that? Allah does not shy away from stating the truth. So what do we take away from that? We should also not shy away from stating the truth. Okay? Even if it is about a relatively small matter, even then we should support the truth. Because the truth actually, in the bigger picture, carries a lot of weight, even if it is through one small statement. Okay? Keep in mind, we learned about the descriptions of the munafiqeen earlier. One of their descriptions is what? Summun, bukmun, umyun. In the literal sense. No. What does that mean? Summun, bukmun, umyun. Deaf towards what? The truth. And mute in what sense? Cannot speak the truth even if it's a small statement. They cannot speak the truth. And they're blind towards the truth. The obvious truth. They don't see it by way of accepting it. So when an example is presented supporting the truth, we should focus on the purpose for which that example has been presented. Okay? And also, we learn from this that we should convey the truth to our family members, our friends, and we shouldn't shy away from this. We shouldn't trivialize this matter. You know, sometimes we learn something, in our pursuit of knowledge, and it brings like one improvement in our behavior, in our routine. And you would, sometimes we look at this as like a tiny improvement. And then we think, this tiny improvement, how can I share this with anybody? How can I motivate my family? Why should I even tell them I brought this tiny change into my life? It's not tiny. It's a change for the better in support of the truth. It's not tiny. Share it. Motivate your family. Even if it is something like, you becoming more regular in terms of making a particular supplication for beneficial knowledge, for example. You've learned it. Maybe you've learned well a supplication through which you ask Allah to protect you from shaitan. Right? And you have become relatively regular with regards to making this supplication. You might look at it as like a tiny change. It's not a tiny change. It's in support of the truth. So share this with your family members. Motivate them. Teach them. Another lesson we learn here is فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. We learn about the excellence and the virtue of the believer who's able to understand and benefit from what others don't understand and they don't benefit from. Iman leads to submission, acceptance, understanding. And fisq and kufr lead to objections. The approach of the believer is سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. Not lima, la, kaifa. Why is it like this? No, it shouldn't be like this. How come? Why me? Poor me? Shouldn't be me, etc. That's not the approach of the believer. Because recognizing Allah as Ar-Rahman, as we were reminded earlier, should also bring within us what? A greater level of reliance upon Him. Trusting Him with regards to His legislation. Another lesson we learned, وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. The disbelievers object with regards to the commands of Allah and His divine wisdom. So whoever objects, even with regards to one component of this deen, then in that person is some resemblance to the disbelievers. Some. So we should never belittle anything mentioned in the Qur'an. At times we do come across a concept that we may not fully understand the first time around. So what should we do then? Try to understand. Make dua to understand. Hence, it's so important to be mindful when you're asking Allah for beneficial knowledge as soon as you begin class. You don't want to like come across some obstacle where it is that, you're just not able to concentrate anymore. You're distracted. If you do come across a concept that you find difficult to understand, seek forgiveness from Allah, try to understand, make dua, put in effort, ask relevant questions. And with regards to questions, we should also not belittle people's questions in pursuit of knowledge. Sometimes, a person asks a question about a matter that seems to be oh so small. Don't laugh at someone who's asking that kind of a question because they want to implement what they need to implement. Don't belittle people's questions. Ask good questions and also encourage other people to ask good questions. It may be that somebody actually is not understanding a particular concept because they're hearing it for the first time. Maybe the second time they hear it, the third time, the fourth time, it'll become clear. Also, when it comes to any other kind of education, if you're learning physics, do you ever come across a situation where you don't understand something? Of course. Then do you start blaming the author of the book that you're learning from? No, you put in extra effort to understand. You consult related books in order to understand. Okay? So a believer is one who respects the kalam of Allah. And a hypocrite is one who makes fun of the kalam of Allah. And so we should even be guarded in terms of our wordings. We shouldn't say about any particular verse of the Qur'an that, I just don't get this verse. Why is this command given to women in the Qur'an? Why isn't this command given to men? Because these kinds of statements can be taken as what? Objections. Right? And if such thoughts come, one should do what? Seek refuge in Allah and not vocalize too much. Okay? Because sometimes, if a person utters this kind of a statement, it's kind of like planted in somebody else's mind for no reason. So be careful in terms of what you choose to vocalize also. We also learn that the ulama of the past that we learn of, whose stories are preserved, they used to cry when they wouldn't be able to understand a concept mentioned in the Qur'an. And why so? Because in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 43, it is mentioned, وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. And these examples we present to the people, but none will understand them except those of knowledge. So the scholars would weep if they wouldn't be able to understand a concept because they thought, maybe we're not from amongst the alimun. Another lesson we learn from this verse is that Allah mentions He misleads many thereby and guides many thereby, meaning through the example that He cites. So why does Allah misguide some and guide others? وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. So the reason for the misguidance of some is because they have left the limits set by Allah. They have chosen to follow their own base desires. Remember, idlal, someone being led astray, is always for a reason. Okay? It's always for a reason. Because Allah does not do any zulm. He's never unjust. He would not just mislead someone for no reason. He's Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. So someone's being led astray is because of a reason. Okay? So if you approach the Qur'an with an open mind, open heart, you will find answers to all of your questions. And we've studied earlier also about hidayah. That the Qur'an, it is hudal lil muttaqin. And the ones who are true, pure believers, they are ala hudam min rabbihim. They are upon guidance from their Rabb. But then we learned about the munafiqeen, وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. They're not guided. And here we learn وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah guides through it, meaning through the example that He chooses to present many. So, in order to obtain guidance, 4 things are necessary. Number 1 is consulting the Qur'an and the Sunnah, studying the Qur'an. Because keep in mind, this is the only book about which it can factually and confidently be said, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Okay? Number 2, pondering upon the creation of Allah. Think about how Ibrahim alayhi salam came to the conclusion that there is only one God worthy of worship. He reflected. And he also tried to help other people think. Number 3, increase in mindful supplication. Okay? When there is a doubt in your heart, don't mention it, don't vocalize it, make dua to Allah. Okay? Number 4, the gatherings of the righteous. Meet righteous people. Because when you're with them, when you interact with them, your iman increases. And iman is the biggest treasure you have. The biggest treasure you have. And then we find in the next verse a description of who the fasiqeen are, what their traits are. Okay, before we continue, let's listen to the recitation of this first verse.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين.
Okay, any reflection anybody would like to share before we continue? Any thoughts? Yes, where's the mic? Okay, please remind me of your name again.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Atiya.
Assalam. Atiya, go ahead, Atiya.
I just had a quick question. So we talked about fisk and we talked about like the various examples, and we've been building upon the concept of munafiqeen. So is it basically a trait of the munafiq, or is it something that can be compared separately?
So that's a good question. It's not only limited to munafiqeen. Okay? There are levels of fisk also. There is minor fisk, there is major fisk as well. Okay? A believer, the one who claims to be a believer, a muwahhid, the one who accepts monotheism, can also be involved in fisk. Can also at times defiantly choose to disobey Allah and disregard His commands. And you can think of many examples, right? For example, would you say that there are certain Muslims, practicing Muslims, who perform salah, they go for hajj, they even give zakah, but then they end up, becoming involved in consuming riba? Happens, right? Or maybe, at a weak moment, they end up getting involved in some haram practice. Any kind of haram practice, knowing that it is haram. It could be, earning a haram income, or looking at something haram, or enjoying looking at something haram. Could be some form of entertainment. Do these kinds of things happen? Yeah. So this is all included within fisk. Okay? But the real issue here is that, these acts of fisk, they can actually toxify a person's system so much so that there is like this desensitization completely. And then a person is deprived of guidance. That's problematic. That's problematic. Because through these acts of fisq, people become sinful, right? And sins, when they accumulate, they darken a person's heart. And then the heart no longer remains very receptive towards guidance. That's why we need to avoid fisq. Okay? Anything else? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
I was actually listening to a sheikh once. He was giving like a tafsir of this ayah, and he was kind of explaining that even at a human level, when there is someone who knows a lot about something or in a specific subject, and he's talking to someone who's not at his level of that knowledge, he is going to boil down that information into something simplistic so that the other person can understand. And that is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is doing with the examples. We, of course, He has all the knowledge. He knows everything. Our knowledge is limited. So to make us understand, He will give us these easy to understand examples so that we can understand what He wants us to know, what He wants us to believe in and then implement. And then also He went on to mention in this ayah that there's a clear difference between the believers and disbelievers, where the believers, it's فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, that they know it is the truth. So this reveals that they put in the work to know that. They sought the knowledge, they put in that effort. But for the disbelievers, it's فَيَقُولُونَ. They just say it, and their claim is there's so much disregard in that claim, and the amount of their ignorance, the amount of, or the lack of effort that they're putting in, which kind of brings out this claim, this like, what does Allah want with this example? So it shows the clear difference of the people who believe. They're putting in the effort to understand what Allah is saying. They putting the effort to seek that knowledge.
Yeah, and this is why you see knowledge, even when it comes to asking for it, like through supplications, they should be done mindfully, the presence of the heart, involvement of the heart. Whether it is noting down knowledge, like, when you're learning, noting down information that is reaching you, this also should be done how? Mindfully, with the involvement of the heart, not just technically, mechanically, without spirit. The involvement of the heart is very important. Beneficial knowledge is, kind of like that rainwater that is absorbed by the earth, right? Beneficial knowledge, not the kind that just like is stagnant, like, it's just it's not getting absorbed. The knowledge we're gaining is not supposed to be only decorating our notebooks. It's supposed to be penetrating our hearts, because our actions stem from there. And this ilm is for amal. This ilm is for amal. And when there is beneficial knowledge combined with acceptable actions, meaning acceptable in the sight of Allah, this is what hidayah is, right? As guidance. So again, coming back to these 4 things that are needed for guidance: consulting the Qur'an and Sunnah. If you have this in your life, alhamdulillah, be grateful. Pondering upon the creation. If you have this in your life, alhamdulillah, be grateful. If you do make dua for beneficial knowledge, you're learning supplications for beneficial knowledge, and you're regular with this, alhamdulillah, be grateful that Allah granted you this. If you are part of gatherings of the righteous, alhamdulillah, be grateful for this. At the level of the heart and also the tongue and also the limbs. In a righteous gathering, do what the righteous should do. And if you're sitting here, and you're amongst those people who have been encouraged by righteous people, maybe they're not with you right now, like your parents for some of you. It could be some other family member, it could be grandparents for some of you. You're here, they're making dua for you, maybe simultaneously. That your heart remains involved, your heart opens up towards this. You don't even know that. Maybe some of them were making dua for you before you even came into this dunya, for your guidance. Be grateful. Include them in your supplications. Make dua for their guidance. These are not ordinary blessings. They're not ordinary blessings. And Allah expects from us what? He expects from us that we humble ourselves before Him and remain grateful to Him. Here's what He expects from us. And His right upon us is the greatest. Okay? All right, now let's take a look at the traits of the fasiqeen. Verse number 27. Who are the fasiqeen? الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ عَهْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ. Those who break the covenant of Allah after contracting it. The term ينقضون from nun qaf dad. Nun qaf dad. Naqada means to break something after it has been made firm. To break something after it has been made firm. And ahd, ayn ha dal, ahd is a covenant, a promise that is to be looked after. Okay? Those who break the covenant of Allah, min ba'di mithaqih. And when you look at the term min ba'di, min is za'id extra. Ba'd means after. And mithaqihi from waw tha qaf. Wathaq or withaq. Both these terms are used for a strong rope or fetter that is used to tie something. Wathaqa basically means to place trust in someone. And awthaqa, it means to tie something firmly. Okay? Mithaq is used for a binding covenant. So, what is this ahd referring to over here? Number one, the ahd between people and Allah. Okay? And this is also what is known as the fitri ahd, meaning having to do with the innate disposition that we've been created with. Referring to belief in Allah and His messengers. Because when a messenger comes, it is mandatory upon every individual to believe in him. And those who don't believe are in fact breaking their pact with Allah. And this may also be referring to, this ahd, it also may be referring to ahd alast. Ahd alast. Where is this mentioned? In Surah Al-A'raf, verse 172. Where Allah declares, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ. And mention when your Lord took from the children of Adam from their loins their descendants and made them testify of themselves, saying to them, أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ? Am I not your Rabb? قَالُوا بَلَى. They said, yes, we have testified. So this is our ahd, our binding covenant with Allah. And it's a solemn binding, confirmed. So fasiqeen are those who break the covenant after contracting it. After saying La ilaha illallah, they break the boundaries established by Allah. The second trait, وَيَقْطَعُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَن يُوصَلْ. And they sever that which Allah has ordered to be joined. The term يَقْطَعُون from qaf ta'in, qata'a means to cut or sever. We learned earlier about the huruf muqatta'at, right? Disjointed letters. Muqatta'at also from qata'a, which means to cut or sever. And here in the term yaqta'un, waw nun, for the plural, the term qita'ah is used for a cut off piece of something. So they cut off what Allah commanded in regard to it that it be joined. Amar Allahu, notice, Ismul Jalala with a dhamma indicating Allah is the doer of the action of amara. Right? Amara from Hamza Mim Ra. Okay? Amar means command. And the term yusal from waw sad lam. Wasala means to join, to maintain, to continue, to be connected, to be linked. So wasala basically is used for uniting two things in such a way that they become connected. we learned that words like alladhi, allati, alladina, these are words that are classified as ism mawsul. Mawsul from wasala. These are joining words. Okay? So, a second trait of the fasiqeen is that they sever that which Allah has ordered to be joined. So Imam Shawkani, he mentions severing of bonds is of two types. Number one, severing the bond of Islam, or severing the bond of ties of kinship. Both are relevant in this context. So what has Allah ordered to be joined? Number one, this has to do with the rights of Allah. Every command that Allah has issued must be followed. Okay? Every command that Allah has issued must be followed. And then one command needs to be connected with the next command, needs to be connected with the next command, needs to be connected with the next command. Okay? So, that which Allah has ordered to be joined, ma amara Allahu bihi an yusal, what is this referring to? The commands of Allah, the rights of Allah. Because His right upon us is the greatest, right? Every command of His is to be taken seriously. Number two, Allah's command that words must be joined with actions when it comes to adhering to His deen. So what you claim that you will do, you better get down to doing. In other words, right? Sami'na needs to be followed with ata'na. Okay? Then also, thirdly, the rights of people, ties of kinship. So this is the second type of bond, having to do with the rights of people, ties of kinship. And then also maintaining good relations with and looking after the needy in the society. Because Allah has created these relationships, meaning with family members that we have, and also community members. A third trait of the fasiqeen, وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, and they cause corruption on earth. Yufsidun from fasin dal. Fasad is corruption. And there are two types of fasad. One is tangible, the other intangible. So the tangible or physical kind of fasad is like depletion of resources, causing of pollution, right? A mental kind of fasad or intangible would have to do with, any kind of mental corruption or brainwashing, right, of people. So there are two types of fasad. One is with regards to inhabitants of the earth, and the other is with regards to resources of the earth, physical resources. And this is the reason why following your base desires is so problematic, because that's what leads to fisq also, and fasad. In pursuit of your base desires, you don't care how you get what you get, as long as you get what you want, right? Even if it is that what you want is leading to a lot of pollution, a lot of garbage, right? Think about, the harms associated with fertilizers, genetically modified foods. Okay, why? Because of base desires that people want fulfilled. And then there's a lot of crossing of limits. Think about wastage of water, pollution of water. And then here Allah mentions about these people with these traits, the fasiqeen, ulaika humul khasirun. It is those who are the losers. They truly are the losers. The term khasirun, plural of khasir, from kha, sin, ra. Khasir is one who suffers khusran. Khusran is what? Loss. So khasir is the one who does not gain any profit. It's a complete loser. So such people will not gain anything. because they went against Allah's instructions, what Allah ordered to be joined. So the eventual outcome of the fasiqeen is what? They are the ones who are losers, complete losers. So in the sight of Allah, the loser is the one who leaves the limits set by Allah, breaks the boundaries, spreads corruption. And so what lessons do we learn from this? We have also made the ahd with Allah, which we shouldn't break. Then also any promise that we make, we shouldn't go against it. Breaking the promise with Allah is fisq. And the one who fulfills the promise with Allah, Allah will fulfill His promise with that person. As we learn in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 40, Ya Bani Israel, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I have bestowed upon you and fulfill my covenant upon you, that I will fulfill your covenant from me and be afraid of only me. Then also those things that Allah has told us to join, we shouldn't cut off from them. Number one, our connection with Allah, it has to be maintained. Our relationships with people, they have to also be maintained. We learn that Muhammad ibn Jubayr ibn Mut'im, he narrates from his father that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who severs ties, meaning ties of kinship, will not enter Jannah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there is no sin more deserving that Allah hasten the punishment in this world in addition to what is stored for him in the hereafter than al-baghi, injustice, and severing the ties of kinship. Also keep in mind, having some problems with relatives is very common. It happens. Breaking the ties with them is what is very problematic. You can have disagreements with them, you will. But breaking ties, this is what is to be avoided. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, al-wasil, meaning the one who connects, the one who joins with family members, is not the one who recompenses the good done to him by his relatives. But al-wasil in the true sense is the one who keeps good relations with those relatives who had severed the bond of kinship with him. That's the wasil. Because it's really easy to be kind to the relative who's kind to you. It's very difficult to be kind and forthcoming towards a relative who is not kind to you. The only way a person can maintain ties of kinship is to forgive relatives on a regular basis. Okay? We learn Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever is pleased that he be granted more wealth and that his lease of life be prolonged, then he should keep good relations with his kith and kin. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the word rahm, which means womb, derives its name from ar-Rahman. So whoever keeps good relations with it, Allah will keep good relations with him. And whoever will sever it, meaning severs the bonds of kinship, Allah too will sever his relations with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the believer who mixes with the people and endures their harm has a greater reward than one who does not mix with the people nor endures their harm. Then also there is great warning given here against fasad fil ard. And this is in reality the result of breaking the promise with Allah and severing bonds of kinship. Both these crimes are fasad ma'anawi, leading to fasad hissi. Intangible fasad leading to tangible fasad. And the result is punishment in this world prior to punishment in the hereafter. That's why we're being cautioned here. And then the eventual outcome, utter loss, khusran. And then here next Allah mentions, كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How can you disbelieve in Allah? How can you deny Him? How can you know that He expects from you to connect certain matters in your life? And then you disregard? This question is being posed here due to astonishment, and also it is meant to be taken as a rebuke. How could you do this? Earlier, the command that we learned about, after all of mankind was addressed, was "U'budu rabbakum." And then proofs for given. This is why you should worship your Rabb. Look at what he's done. Now here also, again, proofs are being mentioned. كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ. How can you disbelieve in Allah? How can you deny Him? Kaifa is a word used for interrogation. Kaifa means how. The word kaifiyya, it means howness, the howness of something, how something is. So this istifham, this question is for ta'ajjub, amazement. How come? Takfurun, you all disbelieve. Takfurun from kaf fa ra. How could you disbelieve billah in Allah? How can you be arrogant towards His worship? Or deny your returning back to Him? When you know your state, وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا, when you were lifeless, you were nothing. And this word kuntum is from kana, yakunu, from kaf waw nun, which means to be. The kalima kun, we're all familiar with, right? When Allah intends for something to be, He simply has to say kun, be. And what He intends becomes, right? So how could you all disbelieve in Allah? وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا, while you all were ones who are dead. The term amwata from mim wauta. Amwat is the plural of mayyit. Mayyit means one dead. Maut means death. So this can be understood two ways. Kuntum amwata. Number one, you were in the state of non-existence. You didn't exist. Or it can also be taken secondly in the meaning of separation of body and soul. After having come into this dunya, combination of body and soul, then comes maut, death, which brings what? Separation of body and soul. So this is referring to the state before people came into this dunya. Okay? So, وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا, when you were lifeless, you were nothing, you didn't have an existence. فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, then He brought you to life. أحيا from ha, ya, ya. And from the term hayya, yahya, we derive hayatun. The term hayatun means life. So one stem word we derive from the root letters ha, ya, ya is hayatun, which is life. Another stem word is haya, which we learned about earlier, which is modesty or shyness. And here hayatun is referring to the coming together of the body and the soul. So again, keep in mind, from the same set of root letters, we can derive different stem words. From ha, ya, ya, we derive hayat, which means life, and also haya, which means shyness. Okay? فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, and He brought you to life, meaning life in this dunya. You had an existence here, where there is combination of body and soul. ثُمَّ, then, يُمِيتُكُمْ, He will give you all death. يُمِيتُكُمْ, again from mim wauta. Maut means death. ثُمَّ, then, يُحْيِيكُمْ, He will give you all life. Yuhyi, again also from ha, ya, ya. So when you look at the term فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, ahya is in the past tense. And when you look at yuhyikum, yuhyi, also from ha, ya, ya, but it gives the meaning of present future tense, referring to the Day of Judgment. He will give you all life, meaning at the time of resurrection. ثُمَّ, then, إِلَيْهِ, to Him, تُرْجَعُونَ, you all will be returned. تُرْجَعُونَ from ra, jim, ain. Ruju' means return. So to Him you will be returned for what? For reckoning, for accountability. So shocking and surprising is the case of the one who denies, does not worship Allah, does not surrender, does not submit before Him. Although he knows he was nothing, and then he was given an existence, and then he's going to be given death, and then he's going to be resurrected. No person has the right to deny Allah. Because Allah is the one who grants life, also gives death, then brings about resurrection. We don't have the capacity to select our birth dates. nor the capacity to select our death dates, nor the day of resurrection. We don't select the day of resurrection. So what makes us think that we can do in this limited worldly existence of ours whatever we choose to do? What makes us think that? In Surah Yasin, verse number 78, we learn the person who is in denial about resurrection, he says, who will give life to bones وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ, while they are disintegrated? So, the one who brought about the bones to begin with is the one who can bring them back. That's the response, right? So in Surah Yasin, verses 78 to 83, we learn that Allah mentions, and He presents for us an example and forgets His own creation. He says, who will give life to bones while they are disintegrated? قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. Say, He will give them life who produced them the first time, and He is of all creation knowing. It is He who made for you from the green tree fire, and then from it you ignite. Is not He who created the heavens and the earth able to create the likes of them? Yes, it is so, and He is the knowing creator. وَهُوَ الْخَلَّاقُ الْعَلِيمُ إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. His command is only when He intends a thing that He says to it, be, and it is. So exalted is He in whose hand is the realm of all things. وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And to Him you will be returned. So after clarifying that He is the one who is able to bring to life what He intends to bring to life, and He is the one who causes death, He also clarifies His favor upon His creation. That He has created everything, made everything serviceable and favorable for human beings and jinn, so that they can worship Allah. هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. It is He who created for you all of that which is on the earth, made conducive for our needs, that we can derive benefit from. The term جَمِيعًا, from Jim Mim Ain, Jam', it means together. So جَمِيعًا meaning all together. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Then, after He created the earth and everything on it for us, He directed Himself to the heaven, as-sama'. فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ, and made them 7 heavens. 7 skies. Keep in mind that heavens over here is not referring to paradise. Okay? This is referring to 7 skies. Now, why is this being mentioned here? So that we as human beings value what Allah has done. Allah has made the earth for us. And so we should do what it is that we're supposed to be doing here and not anything else. The term istawa is from sin wawya, just like the word sawa'un that we learned earlier. And sawa'un, as we learned earlier, means equal from both sides, right? So the word istawa, it means to become straight and leveled. That's the literal meaning of the word. To become straight and leveled or even. It can also mean to rise. But when the term ila comes after it, meaning after the term istawa, it takes on the meaning of paying attention to something. So in other words, what this implies is that Allah paid attention to the sky after making the earth. So after He created the earth and everything upon it, He directed Himself to the sky, meaning He paid attention to it. And He made them into 7 skies. فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. And the word فَسَوَّاهُنَّ, again from sin wawya, sawwa is a fi'l, a verb of past tense. So meaning He completed, He leveled. So He perfectly fashioned them, meaning the skies, as 7 skies. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ, and he is knowing of all things in their totality and in their individual detail also. Everything, including the mosquito, ba'udah, and whatever is above it, فَمَا فَوْقَهَا, and also as-sama, the sky, in its totality. The term alim from Ain Lam Mim, ilm is knowledge. Alim on the structure of fa'il, so there is the meaning of continuity. When a word is found on this structure, alim is one who is all-knowing, who knows a lot. Now, when it comes to the fact that here Allah mentions ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. Okay? The word istawa takes on three meanings in the Qur'an. Okay? When it appears alone without any preposition, it means attaining a level of complete perfection. Kamal, tamam. Okay? So, for example, we learn in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 14, in the context of Musa alayhi salam. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. Okay? And when he attained his full strength and was mentally mature, we bestowed upon him judgment and knowledge, and thus do we reward the doers of good. There's no preposition here. So this is referring to his full maturity. Okay. Another way that this term is used in the Qur'an, when it is followed by the preposition ala. Ala means upon. So istawa coming with ala. This means to rise above. To rise above. So for example, in Surah Al-A'raf, verse 54, we learn, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Okay? Indeed, your Lord is Allah who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and then established himself above the throne. So this is referring to what? Allah ascending over his throne in a manner that suits his majesty. The howness of this we don't get into, we don't know. But we believe in it as it is mentioned in the Qur'an. And it is mentioned in the Qur'an. Okay? A third meaning, when the term istawa is followed by the preposition ila, like here. Okay? Ila means towards. So then it means to pay attention towards. Okay? It can also mean to turn towards something by way of deciding about it. Okay? And also, we learn in Surah Al-Mulk, in verse number 14, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does he who created not know while he is the subtly acquainted? Okay? So the term istawa, when it comes with ila, it means directing the attention towards. And this is the meaning that is relevant here. Okay? It is he who created for you all that which is upon the earth, made all of this conducive. Then he directed himself to the sky, his being above all creation, and made them 7 heavens, 7 skies. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ, and he is knowing of all things. There is nothing that he does not know of. So we spoke about how it is that in terms of whatever it is that we've learned so far, we've been reminded so many times that Allah is Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. He is the one who arranges guidance. Guidance is meant to be internalized. Beneficial knowledge should lead to then amal that is acceptable in the sight of Allah. Right? He knows everything. So when we come towards the Qur'an, every single time, with every single verse, every single lesson, we need to approach this process with humility, because we can never claim we know everything. The only being who makes that claim is Rabbul Alameen. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. And He is knowing of all things. So when we approach the Qur'an, we should always approach it with humility, with the perspective of gaining guidance through it. And this cannot be attained without reflection. Okay? So the reflection question for this lesson is, am I amongst those who cross limits set by Allah in any way? We learned about the traits of the fasiqeen, right? Is my iman increasing with more knowledge of the Qur'an and Sunnah? Because ilm is for amal. We're not just acquiring this ilm just for the sake of ilm. Let me note down. Let me memorize. That's not the objective. This is for amal. Right? Not the end in and of itself, but the means to the end. Okay? Action points. Make your family tree, including the names of your great-grandparents, your grandparents, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, your siblings, your nieces, nephews, and first cousins. Why do you think this is important with regard to this lesson? Why is this important? Yeah. Okay, why is that important? One of the traits of the fasiqeen is what? They break the covenant of Allah after contracting it. And also, the second trait is what? They sever that which Allah has ordered to be joined. What has Allah ordered to be joined? Ties of kinship. How can we do something by way of maintaining ties of kinship if we don't even know who our relatives are? Okay? So one action point is to make your family tree. Find out who your relatives are. Okay? Also, call or write to one of your relatives whom you have not communicated with for a while. Think of a way you can be in the category of al-wasil. We learned about who this person is, al-wasil. And try to help your relative. Or at least make them happy through an attempt to communicate with them. Okay? We learned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, learn your lineages. He said, learn your lineages to solidify your family ties. تعلموا من أنسابكم ما تصلون به أرحامكم. Verily, keeping family ties causes love amongst the kinship, enriches the wealth, and increases the lifespan. So pay attention to these action points. Because who can say, no, I don't want more wealth. I don't want a longer life. So maintain ties of kinship, because this is something fasiqeen don't pay attention to, and we don't want to be in that category. Okay, let's listen to the recitation of these verses.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن 7 سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم.
Okay, so inshallah we will end here for today. When we resume tomorrow, in light of what we have identified as action points, we will share some more reflections, okay? Also some more important information pertaining to upholding the ties of kinship. Okay? And also what is fasad fil ard. There are many manifestations of fasad fil ard, in the physical sense and also in the intangible sense. Okay, so we will inshallah go through some more information pertaining to these topics as well. All right? Okay, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر ولله